Hello, everybody, and welcome in to another episode of the Couch GMs podcast. It is Tuesday, September 27th, 2022, and I'm your host, George Kerth, joined by the two best friends that anyone could ask for, Tyler Snyder and Cody Roadcap in the house. How you guys doing after a pretty ridiculous week 3?
Oh, it was a great
Ridiculous.
week 3. Great week 3. It was the only time this year so far that all three Couch GMs team have pulled out a victory.
Correct. I was going to say the same thing. How can you say ridiculous when it's the first Couch GM sweep? And like Tyler mentioned, that's if the Packers, Titans, and Eagles all win, we all get really excited because none of us are sad on Monday.
That's very true. I'm excited about that. It's just injuries all over the place. Fantasy was a disaster for me this week, mostly because of that. So, that's why I was saying ridiculous. There was a lot of very interesting games, so it was a little all over the place, but I'm definitely happy for the first Couch GM sweep of the year. And on the show today, we are going to be hitting some NFL news and notes, highlighting some of those injuries. We're going to hit quotes of the week. We're going to hit the week 3 waiver wire. We're going to give a little trade advice as it is trade season, as Tyler would say, with some buy high and sell, buy low, sell
Damn it,
high.
I tried to fix it real quick. I tried to fix it real quick because I saw him type it and I couldn't get there in time. I'm sorry. It is
Cody
buy
out
low,
here
sell
trying to-
high.
Yes.
Or maybe you want to buy
high
high.
and
You
low,
don't know.
selling high. And we're also going to preview the Thursday night game for week 4. Make sure you find us on thecouchgms.com, our social media channels, Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, TikTok at thecouchgms, and join our Discord chat. The link for that is in the description of the podcast or video you are watching. Okay, let's jump into NFL news. NFL news today, starting off as if you had not seen, there was a very interesting play in the Dolphins and Bills games where Tua was rolling backwards, got pushed. He hit his head off of the turf and stood up and then appeared to stumble. Seemed very concussed to all of us here watching the replays after the play happened. He was taken back at halftime for concussion protocol and came back out to actually play in the second half of the Dolphins game. The NFL also thought it was a little sketchy. The NFL and the NFLPA are now conducting an investigation on the Tua concussion protocol to see if all of the rules were met correctly. Guys, what is your reaction to this investigation after we were all like, that's very confusing?
I mean, I look at it two different ways. One, I'm really happy that they're doing it because it did look like a concussion. He did smack his head off the turf and then get up and stumble. And we all were very shocked to see him go back into the game. So I'm glad that they're doing their due diligence. They're going to look into it. However, at the same time, we can't just, as fans, just assume, yep, it was definitely concussion. That's it. The Dolphins are cheating. We can't just assume that. We've watched what?
We can't be couch medical doctors. We're Couch GMs. We can't be couch medical doctors as well.
Look, how many times have we watched sporting events and we've seen an injury and we're like, oh yeah, that's definitely this, he's done for the year, or oh, he's fine, it was just this, and then he is done for the year. I mean, Cody, very well, I don't even remember what season it was, but week 1 against the Bears, Aaron Rodgers gets 2018, Aaron Rodgers gets carted off the field in the beginning of the game, and we're like, wow, Rodgers' season is over already. Then he comes jogging back onto the field to lead a comeback win. Like, you don't know. And I can say no to any of the listeners out there. I am not 60 years old. However, I do have a bad back. And just the other day, just last week, I was at work and my back was super sore. I sat down for a little bit and I went to stand up. My back tightened up so much that I almost fell over because it completely threw off my coordination when my back hurt that bad. So it is possible that he did stumble because of his back hurting. But either way, I'm glad that the NFLPA is going to do their due diligence and look into it.
Yeah, I agree. I think Snyder wrapped it up beautifully. It's good that they're investigating it because how obvious it seemed to everyone watching at home, but we were not there. We were not in there. And remember, it is supposed to be an independent neurological person that, deems the person ready to be back. So it wasn't the Miami Dolphins. It was supposed to be an independent person. So good for them looking into it, and we'll just have to wait and see the results.
Definitely. And then the other big news we had coming out on Monday was goodbye to everyone's favorite game, the Pro Bowl. That's sarcastic if you didn't understand that. And we're going to introduce the Pro Bowl games. So essentially, they're going to expand upon the skills competition that already happened before the Pro Bowl, make it some kind of week-long event, and then it is going to end in a flag football game, which is essentially what the Pro Bowl was at this point, if you've watched any of it the last few years. But I think this is a positive impact to try to like showcase some of the league's top players, but get rid of the game that nobody took seriously anymore.
I'm excited. I'm not gonna lie. The skills challenge, back when they would just have all the quarterbacks line up and see who could throw it the farthest, they'd have them run the gauntlets. We can keep doing dodgeball like they've added the last couple of years. The spectacular catches, like those are the kind of thing. It's very much like the NBA. All-Star Weekend is dominated by the slam dunk contest and the 3-point contest. No one really cares about the game. Same with baseball. Couldn't tell you the last time I watched a baseball All-Star game. Tell you the last time I watched a home run derby. Like seeing these players do what they're best at in a competition setting. Maybe we'll finally get a race between the fastest players. Like that'll be a ton of fun. So great for them. And then it is also cool that they're keeping that it is going to be full rosters. So like anyone with a Pro Bowl contract isn't getting altered by this.
Yeah, and just to make sure that we're not neglecting the fourth big sport, hockey does the same thing. Nobody watches the All-Star game, but they got the skills competition, the speed competition, the stick handling competition. We got some skills competitions there that people watch as well. But Cody, you're absolutely right. People like the skills competition. They like watching the fun things. But watching the actual All-Star game or the Pro Bowl game or anything like that, they all suck. Let's get real. Nobody cares. I mean, they're also talking about a potential flag football game, I heard, for this Pro Bowl weekend. And I find that kind of funny because, we've been making fun of how many rule changes they've had to protect the players and saying it almost like they're going to turn it into the flag football league instead of the NFL. And now they're actually doing a flag football game. That is kind of funny, but it should be interesting to watch. I think it'll be more fun than the way the Pro Bowl was, where if somebody gets close to you or within sneezing distance, like you're down. I'm glad that's gone.
I'm very interested also to see if this flag football game is going to be 11 on 11 with still rushers, or if it's going to be a 7 on 7 style and the offensive and defensive linemen sit it out. So, excuse me there.
Yeah, that was my big question too.
Yeah. But we'll have to see if they give out more details before the Pro Bowl week. But 1 week after that is the Super Bowl, as you know. And we did get some Super Bowl news during the Sunday games where Rihanna is actually named the Super Bowl halftime performer. We originally thought it was going to be Taylor Swift, but the NFL dropped a bomb there in the middle of the Sunday 1 o'clock window. What do you guys think of that halftime performer for this year, as well as the sponsor being changed from Pepsi to Apple Music? It's going to be a little different.
Yeah, I think the Apple Music sponsorship change was a big reason why the rumors that Taylor Swift was going to be there. That also was released at midnight. Very common for a Taylor Swift releases to come right out at midnight. But I think Rihanna's going to be a lot of fun. I think she's definitely a worthy artist to hold the halftime show. I think she can hold on her own. We'll see how many other people they bring in. But I think she's one of the kind of people that they don't have to bring in a bunch of other to like help fill it. Like if it's just Rihanna, that's perfectly fine. If she brings in a guest or two, kind of back to the old days when there was one headliner and you might get a song with a special guest. Like I would have hoped that with Rihanna, they kind of keep it back to that style instead of let's bring 4 stars in. They each get 2 minutes or how they've done a couple times in the past.
I would not be surprised to see Jay-Z if Rihanna's there. I'm just saying.
Yep.
Look, I'm pretty sure they're family, not going to lie. So I would not be surprised to see Jay-Z there. But yes, Rihanna is good enough to be the solo headliner. I'm pretty excited about it. I think it'll be fun. No matter what the halftime show is, it can be any genre, any singer, any performer at all. Somebody will be upset about it. So just turn off Facebook during the halftime show. Don't listen to the naysayers. Just sit back and enjoy the show.
And on top of it, we get to look out for around that time period when Taylor Swift writes a song about not getting the Super Bowl halftime show and losing it to Rihanna. But we had injury news to talk about from Sunday. So we'll start off with the quarterback position where Mac Jones suffered a high ankle sprain on the Patriots' last offensive play of that Ravens game. That is big because he is expected to miss multiple weeks. He does not need surgery, but that is going to be a serious blow to all of your fantasy assets on the Patriots, who are already not exactly the safest bets.
Yeah, there's actually videos of Mac Jones going into the locker room absolutely screaming in pain. It's kind of hard to watch. Definitely hope Mac Jones heals up quick. I think the biggest fantasy impact from this, though. Look, I really wasn't going to start any Patriots receivers as it was. I picked up Jacoby Myers in a league here or there as a bench option and then immediately dropped him when he was ruled out because he's not that valuable to me. But I think this is a big impact for the run game. I think Ramondre Stevenson and Damian Harris are both going to have an uptick in carries, both have an uptick in volume. They already were splitting, so I feel like they're both going to get even more volume. But I think that's the biggest thing that's going to come from this.
Yeah, and I mean, how much do you trust Brian Hoyer? So they had the Packers this week, whose defense has actually been pretty good and not giving up many points unless it's the first drive of the game because they still can't stop those. So pretty much out on Patriots for a while, and we've always heard that sometimes ankle sprains are more painful than if just the bone breaks, and those videos definitely led to that about Mac Jones. So definitely hope he recovers quickly.
Yeah, it's very strange to see somebody not even attempting to put weight on an ankle sprain, but it is a pretty severe high ankle sprain, so it makes sense when you hear it that way. And then running backs got absolutely run over this week, it seems like. Starting off with DeAndre Swift for the Detroit Lions, who suffered a shoulder sprain. He is not expected to have surgery, but is expected to miss time. Their head coach, Dan Campbell, said that he could benefit from 3 weeks off, so missing 2 games and a bye week, and that would have him returning week 7 at Dallas. So I'm assuming that means he's going to attempt to get back sooner. But when you hear a head coach saying, I think he's going to benefit from missing this much time, they're most likely going to miss that much time.
Yeah, I wouldn't expect DeAndre Swift back before the Dallas game. The obvious replacement is Jamal Williams. Now, if you've been listening to the show for the last 2 weeks, I've been high on the pick up Jamal Williams because Swift was already dealing with an ankle injury going into the week. He's been on the injury report, been questionable. And Jamal Williams showed, again, he was already still in the red zone targets, and he was productive against the Vikings, and he'll be there, the number one back. And then I also got to give a shout out to Kutztown alum Craig Reynolds, who will now be the primary backup. So we always love seeing him out in the field.
For sure. Go Craig. Go Bears. Go Golden Bears.
Golden Bears.
Let's go Golden Bears. Sorry, let me clarify here.
But if you want to talk Bears, I mean, David Montgomery was another running back that got hurt. He injured both his ankle and his knee, but the positive news is he's considered day-to-day and could play this week. But boy, did Khalil Herbert look good, whether that was just playing the Texans or, we kind of heard whispers about this during the preseason. So once David Montgomery gets back, he might not get the full workload that he was used to just because the way Herbert has looked in the preseason and now in his absence.
I am totally going to equate this to me trying to calm down David Montgomery owners last week, saying how, yeah, you can say that Khalil Herbert's trying to take over, but Montgomery's still getting like 75% of the snaps. He's still looking just as effective. And now here we are. Everything flips a week later, and that's how quick it happens in the NFL. But Montgomery, if you can sell him for any value, I think he's a good guy. Like, we're going to talk trade advice later, but might want to try to cut ties with while he's at value. And Khalil Herbert is definitely one of our top waiver ads, which we're going to get into later too.
Yeah, I think Khalil Herbert is definitely going to be one of the top guys you're going after. If you're a David Montgomery owner, this, of course, is not good news. There was rumors that Khalil Herbert would take over as a starter by some point in midseason anyway, because they felt like he was the more dynamic back. So the fact that he has the chance to really just showcase his own style, that's always a big thing. But how confident are you guys in Khalil Herbert? Now, I saw what he did last week. Once Montgomery went down, he went absolutely nuts, which is definitely great. However, the Bears don't look good right now. George, you are one of the biggest people to say, you know what, that's it. I am done with Justin Fields. He is garbage. If Fields is that bad, and they are throwing historically few amount of times, if they cannot pass the ball, everyone's going to start playing the run. Do you trust Herbert moving forward? Or do you think the Bears offense is going to start to figure out some different ways to get him involved?
How effective were the Broncos with Tim Tebow at running the ball?
Do you want me to look that up?
Middle of the pack? I don't know. No, I mean, I feel like they still had like a fantasy relevant running back, and then obviously the quarterback that could add on in the run game. That is how I'm literally envisioning. That's how I'm literally envisioning the Bears right now. So like while only one of them are getting primary touches, so like if David Montgomery misses time and it's just Khalil Herbert, I like the play. I'll probably put him as a low-end RB2 right around where I had David Montgomery pre-injury. If both of them are playing, I'm not really convinced there's going to be enough rush yards to go around for that split, and I'm probably avoiding it unless you see that like Herbert or Montgomery is going to get the 70-75% of the carries again. So that's where I'm at the moment.
So in 2011, when the Broncos were playing with Tim Tebow, Willis McGahee was their starter for 14 games, put up 1,199 yards. So we'll say 1,200 for easy math, and 4 touchdowns. So that's what he did in 14 games.
Low end RB2, maybe mid RB2, something like that. 1,200 yards is a lot, but 4 touchdowns is pretty low.
Yeah, I would say. I mean, I was also like the biggest non-fan of David Montgomery, probably of the three of us, and he was kind of already a low-end RB2 flex for me. I think Khalil Herbert can be just as valuable. It's just that offense doesn't move the ball very well. But yet they're 2-1, so maybe we shouldn't be talking as bad about the Bears as we are right now.
The Broncos with Tebow won a playoff game, like Tyler said.
Valid. But 2 more running backs got hurt. Dalvin Cook, about as expected, maybe not as early as we expected, but does unfortunately suffer injuries all season or every season. Dislocated shoulder again. He might miss time. He might be able to play through it. Make sure you have Alexander Mattinson if he's available. And if Dalvin Cook doesn't go, Mattinson's in your lineup. And then Joe Mixon, he did suffer an ankle injury, but it is considered minor, and he might play this week. So that's why Samaje Perine is the lowest of the guys that you need to pick up. Because Joe Mixon also has had to deal with injuries in the past and played through them. So I expect Mixon to be back.
I find it very interesting that Dalvin Cook had those tears in his shoulder, which kept causing his shoulder dislocations last year. Went through the entire offseason, didn't address it, and just expected it to get better, and now he has another shoulder dislocation. But if you want any good news out of that, he played through both of them being a problem last year, only missed, I think, 2 or 3 games. So if you're a Dalvin Cook owner, it shouldn't be a big issue, but you need to own Madison in case he misses any time.
Well, Cook has dealt with this shoulder issue. It's just his bone pops out. There's not much they can do. He's dealt with it since college. Like, it's popped out since then. So it's not like something he could have gotten done in the offseason to like make it a permanent fix. It's just something he has to deal with. And then the Joe Mixon one, that one's you're going to have to pay attention to because we're going to talk about them later in the Thursday night preview because they play on Thursday. So the short week could be an issue, but that's all the injury news.
Well, hold on. Before you move on from injury news, one quick injury question from you guys. I just want to get your opinions on one thing, and that is somebody who was injured, supposed to miss the game, decided to play through it, and didn't look himself. That's Justin Herbert. He had some fractured cartilage in his ribs, decided that all the coaches wanted him to sit out, take a week, relax, rest up. He decided to play through it anyway, took a pain injection. Look, if he was able to play this week, there's a good chance that he's going to keep playing. He's going to keep, pain management and everything. But commentators mentioned it, writers mentioned it, and I mean, just the everyday fan could see it. Herbert did not look like himself. He went up against the Jags defense, only put up 13 points, which I know sounds decent, but he's put up 23 in weeks 1 and 2. You drafted Herbert high because you're expecting the big points. Obviously, we are still missing Keenan Allen as well, so that is another big hit, but he just looked off. Do you guys have any fear with Justin Herbert moving forward?
I don't have too much fear with Justin Herbert because he looked off, but he still hit that absurd deep shot that eventually led to some points that even with healthy ribs, he shouldn't have been able to hit, but he somehow did it. So he can still ball out and make plays. I am concerned, though, with the Chargers overall. They're now 1-2. The Jags defense has been better than expected, but still the Chargers a high-power team. But they're just dealing with the injury bug like no one else. Left tackle Rashawn Slater, injured. Keenan Allen, you mentioned, he's out with an injury. Joey Bosa, out with an injury. J.C. Jackson, the guy they brought in, out with an injury. Corey Linsley, the best center in the NFL, out with an injury. Josh Palmer, he's now injured, filling in for Keenan Allen. Jalen Guyton, he was already out. Their linebacker Kenneth Murray was out. Donald Parham Jr., their tight end, was out. That's just a lot of key pieces, high-end starters or high-end backups that they're already missing in week 3. So definitely do some, maybe self-scouting with what you thought with the Chargers. And not to mention, Austin Eckler through 3 games only has 80 rushing yards. Obviously, his big thing is through the air in the passing game, but only 80 yards for Austin Eckler. So maybe he's a guy we'll talk about in a little bit, maybe not, but just someone that isn't getting the volume. So maybe they're going to start feeding him more. But this Chargers team as a whole, with the amount of injuries they have, they're going to have to find something, or they're going to be struggling all season long.
I am a little more worried about Herbert in the short term than long term, because I know that like it can take up to 6 weeks to fully heal from an injury like this, but it's not really re-injury risk, which is why he can come out and play, and it's just a pain tolerance issue. So I would like be worried about him for the next like 1-2 weeks till he starts getting towards the back half of that. But next week they play the Texans. Like Texans defense still not great, so I feel like you can't fade him too far because of that. But do definitely temper expectations because you're probably still not going to get up to speed Justin Herbert for a few more weeks.
All right, fair enough. All right, guys, I think that's it for injury news. Then make sure you are following our Twitter. Make sure you get all of the up-to-date insight on injuries as they happen and changes that you should make. But it is time for George's favorite segment. It is time for Quotes of the Week.
Quotes of the week, starting off with the Miami Dolphins and Tyreek Hill. If you remember, Tyreek Hill used to play for the Kansas City Chiefs. I don't know if anyone actually remembered that. And the Chiefs got beat twice in the matter of, I think it was a month or something like that, by the Bengals, which is why Tyreek Hill is out for revenge against one guy named Eli Apple, who plays corner for those Bengals. He said, "I can't wait to go against Eli Apple, man. I owe you, boy." So even though he doesn't play for the Chiefs anymore, he is looking for some revenge, a big game on Thursday.
Yeah, and let's not forget, Eli Apple did put out on Twitter last year after they won the AFC Championship game at Tyreek Hill, DM me your number so I can send you some Super Bowl tickets. So definitely some elevated, at least one matchup is going to be key to watch on Thursday night, but we could probably, get through the rest of the Thursday night matchups a little bit later. And then we got 2 tweets of the week. Not actually quotes, but they were tweets of the week. I think they were funny, all in good fun. But if you didn't see in that Dolphins-Bills game, the punter punted the ball right into the butt of one of his protectors. It is now being called the butt punt, which Mark Sanchez took to Twitter and said, stay in your lane, bro, and added Morstead, the Dolphins punter. So you love the fun. You just love that Mark Sanchez is getting into or owning the butt fumble around him. And he's like, hey, if it's going to be talked about, I'm just going to own it and take the notoriety that comes with it.
Man, that was 10 years ago. Do you believe it's been that long since the butt fumble?
No, not at all. It's been that long?
It has been. And it's also kind of worth noting that the play that people suspect Dalvin Cook got injured on was a butt fumble. So there was a lot of backside activity this week, I guess. People are going to twist that in the audio later. But we have one more tweet of the week, and it comes from good old former wide receiver Chad Ochocinco. As Cody has on here, Chad Ochocinco Johnson. I'm not sure if that's how he has it on his Twitter handle or not. He said,
well,
quote,
his name's Chad Johnson. He did change it, but he went back. So it's
Chad
Ochocinco Johnson.
So he's Chad Johnson again?
Yes.
So is he going to go back to Ochocinco in a couple of years to keep throwing us off?
He's at Ochocinco on Twitter. So now he has both, so we're good.
Okay, good. Anyway, he said in his tweet, Exhibit 1, why T. Higgins is the better 85. I can't do shit like this. I don't know if I can actually say that word, so we're going to have to bleep it if you need to in post. But okay. But that's in regards to that ridiculous looking touchdown catch. He was way up in the air, somehow came down and toe touch on the back line. It was a ridiculous catch. And Chad Ochocinco noticed it and giving some love to those current Cincinnati wide receivers there.
Yeah, it's kind of rare for Chad Ochocinco to say anybody is better than him. So
very
definitely
true.
High praise. Definitely high praise coming from him.
Yeah, it just sucks that touchdown catch was eventually overturned because of the rule that if you are going backwards, it counts when your heel comes down. If you're going forward, it doesn't count when your heel comes down.
Yeah, that's got to change. That's got to change. I'm sorry, but I hate that rule. I think it is stupid. and that rule's got to change. If you touch 2 feet down inbounds, it shouldn't matter if your heel comes down later. It's still 2 feet down inbounds.
All right. Well, we got to put that on the docket for, rule changes for next year. Hopefully, the competition committee is listening. But that wraps up quotes of the week. So I think what everyone is waiting for and how they can fix their fantasy team. So let's jump into some waiver wire.
Yes, we're going to talk about the week 4 waiver wire. I'm actually throwing myself off on the rundown here. We're going to talk about the week 4 waiver wire here. If you have not already, go check out the couchgms.com where I have my column highlighting some of the top ads. We did talk about some of them, but I'll run them down here quick before we get to some extra content here for the podcast. All of those handcuff running backs are the top guys. So we got Khalil Herbert, Jamal Williams, Alexander Madison, Samaje Perine. We don't really know the extent of some of those starters' injuries, but they all could be relevant. And I think in that order is their order of potential long-term value. And then other guys we have here on the article, Romeo Dobbs. I always mix that up still. For the Packers. Greg Dortch. I think we're finally starting to get on the Greg Dortch bandwagon there in Arizona. Tight end David Njoku, who finally had a breakout game here. We'll see if he can keep that up. And because they're still under 50% owned, I had to mention the Eagles' special teams and defense because they absolutely destroyed Carson Wentz last week. Have another positive matchup against Jacksonville, and I do not know how they're still that widely available.
You just want to say the Eagles beat up Carson Wentz. That's the only reason why you put them in the article.
Potentially, but 9 sacks is something.
It was definitely noteworthy. But like George mentioned, definitely go check that out on the couchgms.com. Some other names we want to talk about. There's not a lot of great options. I'm not going to lie. If you missed out on the guys that George mentioned in his article, there's not a lot of great options. But if you're in a deep league or have to find somebody, I'm going to talk about one guy, and Tyler's probably going to plug his ears, and that is Mac Hollins of the Las Vegas Raiders. Now, I understand George probably wants to too, because I think he was a former Eagle that never did anything.
He caught one long touchdown that one time.
He's coming off a game with 10 targets, 8 catches, 158 yards, and a touchdown. Will he do that again next week? Probably not. And the main reason I'm saying add him is because he is filled into that wide receiver number 2 role, and Hunter Renfrow is still dealing with the concussion. So there's a chance that he still gets that same opportunity next week. And he did have 8 targets for 5 catches and 66 yards the week before. So you did see this, the uptick start to come once Hunter Renfrow went out. So maybe he can do the same thing. Devontae Adams has been struggling to see the balls when they're not going in the end zone. I mean, it was 3 touchdowns to save his fantasy value. But Derek Carr has not targeted him like Aaron Rodgers did, or unlike he did in week 1 when he had like 15 targets. So Mac Hollins is a name to watch if you're in a deeper league or just want to take a shot on a guy that put up a big week.
Yeah, I think it is worth noting that Mac Hollins was man-to-man with a corner the Titans signed 4 days before the game. So that definitely does help Mac Hollins' value in that game because he wasn't going up against stiff competition. But even the week before, Mac Hollins still put up nearly 10 points in a half-point PPR league. He was still heavily utilized. So he's definitely worth looking at. I got 2 guys to mention real quick. And these are basically because what are you waiting for? They're heavily owned in a way, but they should be 90% owned. We got Brian Robinson, running back for the Washington Commanders. Only reason I could see him potentially not being owned is if it's not a deep league and you don't have IR spots, which if you don't have IR spots, talk to your commissioner, get it added. But Brian Robinson should be back very soon. He was super exciting before the season. I think he's going to take Antonio Gibson's job real quick. He's definitely worth owning, definitely worth slotting in there, especially with the running back injuries starting to pile up now. And the other one is Chris Olave, wide receiver for the Saints, especially with Michael Thomas getting banged up a little bit this past week. They don't consider it a serious injury, but even yet, Chris Olave, yes, he's a rookie, but he is looking fantastic. He is getting heavily targeted, heavily utilized in that offense. He's putting up numbers. Olave isn't just like some borderline bench guy that you pick up and just hope he turns into something. Like Olave is becoming the guy that you can actually start on a weekly basis, or at least play the matchups if nothing else. But he should definitely be owned in more leagues. He is 63% owned, but again, if he is available in your league, go snag him.
I'm with you. Like, I don't understand how he's 63% owned either, because he now is actually taking the lead in targets in New Orleans. It's kind of crazy to see. But I have two guys from the same team I want to mention here, and it's the Jaguars. I feel like we've been talking more Jaguars in these first 3 weeks than we did all of last season, and maybe for good reason. Like, I'm questioning how high the potential is for this Jaguars offense now. And first off, it would make Trevor Lawrence a fantasy relevant quarterback. He's currently 42% owned. He put up 18 points in a regular quarterback scoring league 2 weeks ago and 25 points against the Chargers. Like that, if he can do that every week, he's going to be a top 10 quarterback at the end of the year. I'm not saying he can keep that up, but at least as a matchup based starter, you have to start thinking about Trevor Lawrence. And then we all know how good Christian Kirk has been these first few weeks. He's actually earning that money that we laughed at earlier this year. But if Trevor Lawrence is going to be that good, he might be able to support two pass catchers. And the other one that's currently looking at is Zay Jones. I never thought I would say add Zay Jones, especially after all the jokes I made with the Cody, like, oh, who's that guy? Oh, it's Zay Jones. I'm not adding him. But he looks good. He actually led the Jags in targets this week. He's putting together a couple of good games in a row, and at least looks like the number 2 option behind Christian Kirk. I don't know, is this an overreaction, or is Zay Jones here to stay?
Do you want me to answer honestly, or do you want me to help build your case?
Answer honestly, because I honestly don't know.
So I would say it's an overreaction for Zay Jones, because I actually debated about throwing in Evan Ingram onto this too, because he's seen some targets, but he's been, he had a really good week 2. He came back to earth in week 1. So it seems like outside of Christian Kirk, you have those guys that it's going to be this guy 1 week. Who's going to, step in? Who's going to be open? So I don't know if there's any guys that I would rely on outside of Christian Kirk in that offense and the running backs. But just to hit on Trevor Lawrence too, I understand they play the Eagles this week, so it might not be the best matchup if you're streaming, but we did just see what he did against the Chargers. Granted, I did mention there was a lot of guys that left that game with injuries. But then he has the Houston Texans, the Indianapolis Colts, who have, they shocked everybody, but they haven't been the best team, the New York Giants, and the Denver Broncos the following week. So that's a pretty good stretch for quarterbacks. So maybe even if you want to get in on Trevor Lawrence a week early, I definitely think it's worth doing that.
Yeah, my last guy that I want to talk about is Bills wide receiver Isaiah McKenzie. He was definitely highly talked about coming into the season. We were expecting big things, a little bit disappointing in week 1. Well, he finally broke out in week 3 here. He saw 10 targets, was heavily utilized. I think that he's definitely going to be a guy that moving forward is going to get a lot more target share. McKenzie did have that fumble in week 1. He did have a drop or two. So I think it was in his head, maybe some early season jitters, and they kind of shied away from him just a little bit, but he seems like he's got it together now. He is ready to go. And, we saw, I know Stephon Diggs is a big target, don't get me wrong, and Gabriel Davis is there as well, but we saw what Cole Beasley did as a number 3 wide receiver for the Bills. He was still worth owning. He was still worth starting a lot of weeks. So there's definitely plenty of points to go around, especially with Josh Allen slinging it the way that he is this year. So Isaiah McKenzie, 31% owned. If you're in a deep league, go snag him.
Yeah, and
yeah,
also,
you definitely want. Sorry, go ahead, Cody.
No, I was going to say, if George, you have another guy, you can go ahead. But if not, I'll say what I was going to say.
I do. I was going to say, you definitely want pieces of those big offenses, and it might be inconsistent a lot of times with those like third, target options, that kind of thing. But now there's somebody else that I want to mention here that's also in the same situation. It's on the Chargers, and it's Josh Palmer. Because, Keenan Allen still might miss more time. If he does, that's even better for Josh Palmer in the short term. They have Mike Williams in front of him, and I think the DeAndre Carter thing is kind of starting to die down. I think he's more of a skill guy, on the special teams that was just happening to get more targets on offense. And then the other guy that was in that offense was Jalen Guyton, who just hit injured reserve, is out for the year. So now should be a clear wide receiver 3 option is Josh Palmer on a high-powered offense once Justin Herbert starts to get a little bit more right. I like that as an ad if you're going to start adding people from those high-powered offenses similar to an Isaiah McKenzie.
Yeah,
I just
just
want to
remember.
apologize in advance in case anybody can hear my dog snoring on the mic. But he is laying right next to me and he is snoring hard. So Calvin is not thrilled with fantasy football right now, but
Yeah,
we definitely are.
with these waivers, I can understand it. And just a reminder, Josh Palmer is also injured at the moment, so it could be a speculative ad. Not supposed to be long term. So if you want to get in early, but I was just going to remind everyone too, doing waivers. If those top guys are gone, or you're near at the end of your waiver wire, or you don't want to spend that amount of fab to go up and get a Jamal Williams that it's going to take, don't make a waiver move. Get yourself in a higher priority and then shop who gets cut. Because sometimes sometimes your league mates, they'll be in desperate situations. They might drop a guy that you can't believe they're going to cut, and then that puts you in a prime position. So sometimes the best move is to not make a move and see what happens the day after waivers. And a lot of these guys that we're talking about fall into that category. Like, are they even going to be picked up? Can you pick them up the next day if no one you like is going to be cut too? So that's some of the strategy game you have to consider when you are playing fantasy, is when to actually make a move and when to sit back and see if something falls into your lap.
Well, Cody, I got to say that, knowing when to make a move is definitely a big thing. But if you are anything like me, you are itching to make a move. You want to go out there, you want to do something, and it's not on the waiver wire. It's trades. It is trade season. And Cody, I know you feel the itch too because you like to trade just as much as I do. So if you guys are out there, if you are feeling that itch as well and you want to go start trading, it is time to get into some buy low, sell high. Here is some targets for you guys to look at.
All right. Why don't we start off with some buy low candidates? Some guys that are struggling or not playing up to their top right now that you can get at a value. I mean, some of these guys are bigger. You're going to have to still pay up, but we're saying you're going to pay less than they are actually worth. Cody, I noticed you have 2, so I'll let you go with one of yours first.
All right, I'll start with one, and that is Davante Adams. I mentioned it a little bit when we talked about Matt Collins, and he has 3 touchdowns through 3 weeks. So getting him on a buy low might be more difficult. It might be not the, guy you can sell one of the sell high candidates for. You might actually have to give up something significant. And I understand why it's scary, because in weeks 2 and 3, he only had 7 catches for 48 yards. Granted, he had a touchdown each game, saved his fantasy day. But the Raiders are the only 0-3 team right now, which is kind of crazy. Some of us were predicting them to make the playoffs. They're gonna get it figured out. They're gonna bounce back, and one of the things they're gonna do is they're gonna start targeting Davante Adams. And let's look at Week 1, just 2 weeks ago, when he had 17 targets, 10 catches, 141 yards, and a touchdown. That's the dominant Davante Adams. They're gonna have to be like, okay, look, we can't go into a game giving Davante Adams the same amount of targets we're giving Matt Collins. Like, that can't happen.
Yes.
That's what happened on Sunday. So if you can, I would recommend going out and get Davante Adams.
I will say that week 1 was a great week for Davante Adams, and you got to go back and look at what happened with the targets. But I'm sorry, but if last year you told me there was a game where Davante Adams had 17 targets and he only ended with 140 yards and 1 touchdown, I would have said you're crazy, because that kind of volume, typically you expect Davante Adams to put up ridiculous numbers, and he just put up really good numbers. I mean, not Davante Adams level numbers, but still, even yet, yes, I agree, Cody. It did look like against the Titans, I did get to watch Adams a lot closer this week. It did look like against the Titans, they were trying hard to get him utilized. They definitely ran the ball with Davante Adams a lot. They threw it to him on the short ball. They threw it to him on the deep ball, and the Titans just shut it down. It looked like the play design is not set up. They're trying to force the ball in Davante Adams' hands and just let him do the work, when they got to try to design some plays to get the ball into his hands with a little bit of space or in motion. Let him really get cooking and do something good. But I'll go ahead with my guy, because I also have a wide receiver, and that is Chris Godwin. Now, Chris Godwin has been injured, so definitely a buy low candidate right now. I'm sure there's a team out there that took Godwin in the mid rounds because he's like, Godwin's supposed to be hurt, so I'm not taking him as he fell in the drafts because he was supposed to be hurt, and then he ended up playing, so they think they get a steal, and then he ends up getting hurt anyway. Um, so there's definitely some frustrated owners out there with Chris Godwin. You might just be ready to cut bait with him and get somebody new. And that's the kind of guy you want to go grab. Like, I understand it is frustrating. I will admit that as a Chris Godwin owner in certain leagues, I am nervous to have Chris Godwin the rest of the year because he is struggling to stay healthy. But when healthy, he is a dominant force. He is a guy that kills it. And Tom Brady is struggling right now. He needs someone to step up and take the reins. Mike Evans being suspended and Julio Jones being hurt and Chris Godwin being hurt, nobody has stepped up to be Brady's guy. So he needs one of his vets to come back, and Brady's not going to like being held down in the passing game for too long. Godwin's going to cook the rest of the year. He's going to be good once he finally does get fully healthy. So I think Chris Godwin's a great buy low candidate.
I like him because I feel like if you don't have any shares of him, you kind of forgot about him because he got hurt in week 1, hasn't played since. You expected him to be hurt, but he was actually playing really well before that injury in week 1. So love that buy low candidate. And then I have a running back to go for here, and it's actually somebody we just talked about who's a little banged up. It's Joe Mixon. So number one, there is news coming out that he is actually probably likely to play on Thursday, which is, I mean, we'll see if he gets a full workload, but we've seen Joe Mixon work through injuries like that before. But you have a guy who peaked in week 1. He scored under 10 points and a half PPR the last 2 weeks. He's banged up. If you're going to find a value for a late first round, early second round running back, it's when he is injured and coming off of 2 struggling weeks. So you're still probably going to have to pay up for a Joe Mixon, but I think this is the perfect time to try to go get that RB1 for your team.
Yeah, I do like the ad, especially if he doesn't go this week. Like, if you can wait it out, like maybe not make the move as soon the minute you're listening to it, see if he does go. Because if he doesn't go, you could probably get him for even a little bit less, but then 10 days off. And then you were talking about the Bucks, Tyler, with Chris Godwin, and talk about how much they need somebody. On the broadcast yesterday for the Packers-Bucks game, they said that through 3 weeks, the Buccaneers have yet to score a touchdown in the first half, which kind of blows my mind. But that just goes to how much they need some offense. I know their offensive line is decimated, which is making life miserable, but that's not going to be a Tom Brady-led team. So I really do like the Chris Godwin ad. I wish I would have thought of it myself, which I didn't. So props to you on that one. And then my last guy is, this one's a little bit more risky, but it's Travis Etienne. Now, I know I need to apologize because James Robinson has looked way better than I expected coming off of a torn Achilles. But he is coming off of a torn Achilles, and we haven't really seen a running back be able to sustain success off of a torn Achilles in terms of fantasy. He's on that pace. I fully get that. But, Travis Etienne, he was hyped up. He was going to be the guy. He was going to be catching passes, which he hasn't been doing that much. He's been getting, 3 to 4 targets a game, which is pretty good for a running back, but not the guy that was working in the slot that we kind of were hearing out of. Maybe that's because of the rise of Christian Kirk. But, their numbers have gotten a little bit closer. It was 13 carries to 17 carries last week. So Travis Etienne is still a part of that offense. He's a guy that, people had high expectations on. They could be disappointed through 3 weeks. So I'm not saying go out and give up a lot, but in terms of running backs, when we've seen the top guys have been disappointing, running backs have been struggling. Travis Etienne is a guy that I think is talented enough and has the skill enough to at least turn around and have a strong second half. So not a must go out and buy low on, but if you have some other pieces, go ahead and do it.
I think
All
this
right,
is going to go right into, let's switch this over to sell high, because I think your sell high is going to feed almost right into what Cody said here with the buy low.
Mine personally?
Yeah.
Look, okay. I feel like my sell high is going to get some hate because he has been solid. He has been consistent, and George was hyping up the Jags earlier. But my sell high is Jaguars receiver Christian Kirk. Yeah, they paid him a whole bunch of money. They plan to use him. Trevor Lawrence looks good. I 100% agree. However, I don't think what Christian Kirk is doing is sustainable. Um, First off, Christian Kirk has 6 catches every week. He turned it into 117 yards the first week. He turned it into 2 touchdowns the second week, 72 yards and a touchdown in the third week. But if he consistently is getting 6 catches a game, at some point you're going to stop getting those big plays. You're going to stop getting those touchdowns. Yes, the targets are all over the place. He did have 12 targets in week one. But with those 6 catches, every single week he has had a catch of 25 yards or more. So he is getting a lot of yards on the one big play. And you also got to look at the Jaguars. Like, I understand they look really good right now. I get that. But are we really thinking the Jaguars are going to keep this up? Are we really thinking that this is the year the Jaguars just go nuts and become amazing? Because I feel like a lot of the reason they're winning is because their defense has been so good. But let's also look at the first 3 weeks. I mean, Washington in week one, the 30th ranked passing defense. Indy in week two, which is a good passing defense, but the Jags are historically amazing against the Colts, especially in the early season. I don't know why. They just are. Divisional matchups are weird. And then week three, the Chargers are the 27th ranked passing defense. He does have some tougher matchups coming up, including the Giants and the Broncos, which are actually the number 1 and 2 passing defense, believe it or not. Granted, the Giants haven't played yet at the time we're recording this podcast, so their stats should drop, but he's not going to have quite as easy of matchups. I just don't think he's going to be able to sustain it. I think he's still going to be a good receiver as the year goes on, but for the value that he's at right now as a top 10 receiver, you can sell this dude and get someone that's definitely a lot more trustworthy and a lot more consistent down the stretch. Somebody I would like to win a championship with.
Yeah, and I'm
And he
not saying
has. Okay.
I was gonna say I'm not saying it's gonna happen, but like look at the guys we just talked about at Devontae Adams. It's probably gonna take Christian Kirk and maybe a running back. Maybe you picked up Jamal Williams, Alexander Mattison, some guy like that. You have a Jeff Wilson. You have J.K. Dobbins coming back, but you picked him late. So if you throw a Christian Kirk and J.K. Dobbins, that might get you Devontae Adams. Same with Joe Mixon. You'd probably have to throw in, one of the waiver wire guys like a Jamal Williams or a Khalil Herbert or something like that. And then Chris Godwin, you might even be able to get straight up, in all honesty. Whether you want to do that one or not is, how much do you believe in Chris Godwin coming back to full health? But Tyler is onto something, he has big numbers, but it's all on 6 catches. That has been consistent for 3 weeks. What happens when he doesn't pull in the touchdown or he doesn't pull in, the 25-yard play? So definitely a name worth watching. But George, I'm sorry I cut you off.
No, it's fine. I want to say that, like, if he consistently wants to keep getting 6 catches, like, that's not awful. Like, he's probably going to be a flex option most weeks with that kind of volume, especially in a PPR. But it's not going to be wide receiver 2. So this is the perfect time to sell high because he is at least slightly overperforming. But even if he stays at the same workload, he will be a little lower than he is playing right now. So I'm with you. It's a good time to try to get that value and just bump up a little bit. But mine, I think we're already starting to see a regression and we just don't know it. And that's Clyde Edwards-Helaire. So we remember in his rookie year, he was drafted in the first round. He had a really good start to the season, and then he did so bad that he finishes like running back 15, but he was like running back 30 in the second half of the year or something. It was bad. And this backfield split in Kansas City is maddening, honestly. And then we'll go to this week's stats. So I'll say in a half PPR, he scored 12.4 points. Looks solid. He could even be a running back 2 most weeks, just getting 12.4. The man had literally 0 rushing yards. 7 carries, 0 yards, run rushing touchdown. And then 39 yards through the air on 5 catches on 5 targets. So, like, talk about overperforming right there. Week 1, he had 20 points because of 2 touchdowns. Week 2, I can say was his solid week. He scored 13 points without scoring a touchdown. But he's not getting the number of carries you need to be a solid RB2. He's been touchdown dependent. You just can't tell. And he's going to have a boom week now and again, but this is the perfect time to sell him before people realize he's overperforming.
Yeah, and it's worth considering that, he is currently performing as like running back 2 as a every week starting running back because he's playing to that level. However, he is yet to have more. He is yet to have double digit rushing attempts in any game yet this season. He is getting used in the passing game, but not 7 carries in week 1, 8 carries in week 2, 7 carries in week 3. If I am a guy who is starting a running back 2 every week, I want to see more volume. It's just like when we saw Aaron Jones get next to no touches in week 1. It's like you get a guy that you want to put in your starting lineup every week, you want to see volume. Now Aaron Jones is a guy that has been getting the volume, and he has more talent than Clyde Edwards-Helaire and is able to do more with those touches. I don't think CEH is on that type of a level. I think it is a great sell high, especially with if you can sell him this week. He's got the Bucks, which is the number 1 run defense next week, so that's a team that I'm probably not starting CEH against. And then he has Buffalo in week 6, and you got the bye coming in week 8. So you got a tough stretch right here. This is definitely a good time to sell him before he starts on a downswing and loses all of his value.
Yeah, I think CEH is this right now is your perfect opportunity if you do have him to move on or get some value out of him. I have the last guy, and I'm going to admit right off the top that this probably shouldn't be in a sell high segment. It should probably just be in a sell segment, but that's okay. I'm still going to roll with it. And there is also a part of me that can understand why you would want to buy this guy low. So it could be a perfect trade in your league, but it is running back Javonte Williams. Now, the Broncos are 2-1, but they scored 11 points and won a game last night. Their offense still has not fully clicked, fully not come together. And to make matters worse, they are now in a 3-way running back split with none other than one of the biggest playoff fantasy disappointments ever in Mike Boone. Look at Sunday Night Football from week 3. Javonte Williams did lead the backfield with 33, snaps. He ran 13 routes. Melvin Gordon was right behind him with 28 snaps and 13 routes. Mike Boone, 14 snaps, 11 routes. Is Mike Boone becoming the pass catcher? Is he going to become a third down guy? This is already a crowded backfield on an offense that just hasn't found its rhythm yet. So, like I said, it's probably not a sell high because there's just not a lot of options out there. But if you could go out and, throw him in with, another guy to, upgrade your running back or something like that on the name recognition or what people think he can be, I think it's worth a move.
I hate Mike Boone with a passion. Mike Boone almost ended my relationship. Quick story time for those of you out there. I talked my now fiance, girlfriend at the time, into playing fantasy football. Her first ever year playing fantasy football, she had a killer draft on her own, mind you, and got Derrick Henry, Christian McCaffrey, and Nick Chubb all in the prime of their life and dominated the league, made the championship game, and Derrick Henry was sitting for rest. And I think it was McCaffrey got injured. It was one of his first injuries, and she needed a running back in the championship round desperately. I said, start Mike Boone. George said, pick up, start Mike Boone. Cody said, start Mike Boone. Some of our other friends, Mark D from the other podcast that we've had on as a special guest speaker, he said, pick up, start Mike Boone. She started Mike Boone. He got 1 point, and she lost the championship. If she would have gotten one more point, she would have won. And she has not let me live that down, especially because I am the one that beat her in the championship that game. So since that day, Mike Boone is the bane of my existence. We almost lost it. Almost ended our relationship that day.
Fun story time. Shelby, if you're listening, Snyder paid us all $5 to text you back. Mike Boone. So it was him all along. He just wanted to win.
Yeah, okay. This sounds super fitting that Mike Boone almost destroyed your relationship back then, and now Mike Boone is going to destroy the Broncos backfield in 2022. But I think that ends our buy low, sell high segment. Why don't we jump into a little Thursday night preview before we get out of here? Thursday night football should be a good one if the Bengals keep on the right track to getting back right. It is the Bengals hosting the Miami Dolphins. Now, I mean, I have to start off right away with, I'm guessing Tua's not showing any concussion symptoms. I'm guessing the concussion protocol thing was legit and Tua is going to be fine to go. But it's kind of concerning that it was a short week right after that whole situation.
The first day after that game, we watched Tua go down, smack his head. Everyone's thinking he's got a concussion. He goes into the locker room, they clear him and say, oh no, it was actually because of his back. It was a back injury, and that's why he was acting so weird. But you know what they said today? Oh, he's sore, his ankle hurts. Excuse me? Where did that come from? Like, what is happening with Tua Tagovailoa? But either way, he played through it, and I think this dude's tough. The way he's playing right now, there's no way you're going to get him to sit. He's going to play, but still, it's just something to keep an eye on. This man is beat up already. I think. I don't know. It's mysterious injuries of Tua. It's strange.
George,
Okay,
you
I
gonna
thought Cody
pick
was
back
going
up?
to jump in. So you got the mysterious injuries of Tua, but I think all his receivers, especially if he goes, are still good to go. You're not going to see another super bad week out of Tyreek Hill. I mean, that's just the typical Tyreek Hill's going to disappear every couple of weeks. He did it in Kansas City even, but his big weeks are going to be why you still keep him in your lineup every single week. Jalen Waddle still salvaged a 100-yard game, so there's no problem there. Are you touching any of the running backs on Miami?
If you have to pick one, for some reason, it'd be Chase Edmonds. But I would prefer to go elsewhere. But if you're in a bind and don't get one of these waiver guys, then Chase Edmonds would be the one I would go with.
I think Edmonds is touchdown dependent at this point. I don't think he's going to get the volume you need to give you the yards that you're hoping for, but he has been stealing some touchdowns when they do get to the goal line. So he is touchdown dependent. Touchdown dependent guys usually are pretty valuable. Look at what Jamal Williams did while DeAndre Swift was healthy. And I mean, the dude didn't carry the ball much, but he stole every touchdown. Or Kareem Hunt with Nick Chubb stealing every touchdown. They are still valuable, but it's not guys you want to rely on if you don't have to.
Exactly. It's worth noting I was on the Raheem Mostert bandwagon last week on the waiver wire. Mostert still did out-touch and out-target Chase Edmonds, but Chase Edmonds had 2 touchdowns. Again, like you're saying, touchdown dependent. He's probably more valuable because of that and getting the goal line carries, but it's not going to be consistent. So I'm also trying to stay away from them if I can help it. And then moving to the Bengals side, is it all your normal guys, except for maybe Joe Mixon if he doesn't go?
Yeah, let's. That's a great question. We mentioned pick up Samaje Perine, but this Dolphins defense has actually looked pretty darn good through the first 3 weeks. If Joe Mixon is out, does that make Samaje Perine an automatic start, or are you still might look elsewhere because it's a short week, a backup? Like, what are your guys' thoughts?
Look, I'm sorry, but there is no way I am ever comfortable starting Samaje Perine. I don't care the situation. I don't care if he's the definite starter and they're going against a bad run defense. Samaje Perine is not a guy that I'm like, oh yeah, gotta roll this dude out. Like, there's other running backs in the league that are starters, but you're not going to play them anyway. And this is one of them. I don't feel like he is that fantastic of a starter to be able to just plug in there, especially against, like you said, like the Dolphins defense has been really good. So it's not a defense I'm really trying to play with. I would rather go with somebody else. Obviously, if you're in a bind and you're really struggling, he might be a play. If you're in daily fantasy and you just want a cheap option to potentially win you the matchup, maybe not a bad option. But if it's up to me, I'm leaving P. Ryan on the bench.
The only time that I like P. Ryan at least some is if you're in a full PPR because we know he's normally the passing down back. I mean, Mixon was still getting a lot of those targets, but now like you expect him to be in a little bit of a shootout. He can probably get himself 5-6 catches in this game just from playing extended time on top of his just passing down. So I think that's where he's going to be the most effective, but I don't think he's going to be the most effective in actual yardage. And then you have to hope he gets a touchdown.
All right. And then also on the Bengals side, you're going to start Jamar Chase, you're going to start T. Higgins. But what about Joe Mixon? Not Joe Mixon, Tyler Boyd. We just talked about Joe Mixon. Tyler Boyd. We expect it to be a high-scoring game. Tyler Boyd has 2 double-digit weeks in half-point PPR scoring week 1 and week 3. Had a big 18.5-point week last week. Are you playing him in your flex spot? As a flex guy, not actually in your flex spot. If you do play guys on Thursday night, put them in the actual position. But are you in on Tyler Boyd at all?
I think Tyler Boyd is a better receiver than the other guys I'm about to mention. But last night, or on Sunday, when Tyler Boyd had the big play, ended up getting a touchdown. Like, Cody, you texted the group and said, well, it's a Tyler Boyd week. And it sounded exactly the same as when we used to go, well, it's a DK Metcalf week. Well, it's a Tyler Lockett week. Like, I feel like some weeks Boyd is going to be the guy. He's going to get the points. And some weeks he's going to absolutely disappear. I would put Tyler Boyd in the same conversation as Tyler Lockett right now. I would put him in the same conversation as Isaiah McKenzie right now. You know that these guys have the potential to give you a 15 to 20 point week at any given moment, but you also know these guys could completely disappear and give you 2. So if you're comfortable starting guys like Isaiah McKenzie and Tyler Lockett on a weekly basis, then you should be comfortable starting Tyler Boyd as well. But if you're anything like the rest of us that are sketched out by that, I think you got to play the matchups. Look for the games where it's going to be a shootout. Look for the games where maybe the Bengals will fall behind a little bit and need to start throwing the ball more, which this game could be one of those games. Look for the games that you think they're just going to start slinging it and Joey B is going to put up 350 passing yards. Those are the games you're starting Tyler Boyd.
You basically took the words right out of my mouth, honestly. And I still want to mention it was a Boyd week, but Boyd has just basically been the long ball threat. When Boyd gets his long touchdown, it's when it's a Boyd week. He was still 4th on the team in targets behind Jamar Chase, T. Higgins, and the running back this time. In case Joe Mixon, it might not be Joe Mixon, it might be P. Ryan this week. It's still a sketchy play. I think you need to try to point out the game where the Bengals are going to score 27, 30, 35 points, like Tyler said. So if you think that's one of those weeks, go Boyd. If not, don't.
All right, real quick, I'm going to ask you both some start sits. Tyler Boyd or Curtis Samuel against the Cowboys?
Curtis Samuel.
Curtis Samuel. The volume.
All right. Tyler Boyd or Tyler Lockett versus the Lions?
That's basically a toss-up. I'll go Boyd, sure.
Yeah, I think Dolphins have a good team. I think that this game could turn into a shootout. Shootout is good for Boyd. Give me Boyd.
All righty. 2 more. Tyler Boyd or Darnell Mooney versus the Giants?
Oh, Boyd, all day.
Boyd.
I am not starting Darnell Mooney in any league. I dropped him in our league of record, and he is one of my favorite players. I don't like Darnell Mooney right now. No.
I don't like anyone with a Bears C on their head except for maybe a starting running back.
All right, and then the last guy, he battled back their injury, but their offense is struggling. Tyler Boyd or Jerry Jeudy?
I like Jeudy. I think I'm still one of the very few people that is on the Jeudy train. I feel like every week I'm like, Jerry Jeudy, he's good. And every week people are like, I'm not starting Jeudy. But I'm one of the few people that are still on that train. I still think Judy's good, even though the Broncos suck. I know they're 2-1. I don't care. Their head coaching, their play calling decision still sucks. Russell doesn't look like himself, so they're a struggle. But I still think Jeudy is enough of a playmaker. Give me Jeudy.
They played a very tough defense this week. They're going against an 0-3 Raiders team. Jeudy was still coming back from an injury. I'm also going to go Jeudy and not overreact to the fact they only got 2.7 and a half PPR last week.
All right. Well, I think that wraps it up. If you have any questions for Thursday night, feel free to send them our way. But as always, thanks for listening.
Absolutely, guys. And as always, reach out to us with any questions you have. If you're thinking about a trade, let us know. Even if you have to privately message us so your league mates don't see it and get some wind on it, feel free to do that as well. If you have any waiver questions, some start-sit questions, or if you just want to make fun of George like we always do, anything you want to do, either way, this podcast is so much more fun for us and more fun for you when you get involved.
Yes, it is, guys, and thank you all one more time for listening into the Couch GMs podcast. For Tyler Snyder and Cody Roadcap, I'm George Kerth, and we'll see y'all later in the week.